Right, starting off first, we have Agent Venom. Probably not one of the most... well, probably not the first character you would think of when it comes to the Avengers, but they have been a member. So we'll be starting with them. In terms of their immediate abilities and how well they would fit into the combat style, I think they'd fit pretty well. They've got the spider climbing, which they're adding with Spider-Man, so it's already in the game. The combat would fit pretty well. Guns and melee are the two things that the game relies on pretty heavily currently, with Black Widow for guns and melee for the majority of the characters. I think they'd be a good fit. In terms of skins, they have a few variety. It wouldn't be very big swings left or right in terms of the variety we could get. It'd probably be a lot of slight changes to the skins, so they're not. He's not going to be a great one monetarily for them. Wouldn't give them a whole lot of potential, but then again, with Kate Bishop, they haven't really leaned into it all that much. We have a few different types of skins, but it's mostly recolors. I guess also in terms of the Avengers game, if you're looking at kind of trying to catch the audience in terms of characters they want to see, Agent Venom, I'm sure a lot of people would be excited, but he's not one of the first ones you think of. He's a bit of a side character almost in terms of the Avengers. So yeah, combat would be super good. I think with Agent Venom, not a lot of potential for skins though, and he's not the first person you think of when you think of the Avengers. So because of that, I'm going to put him in B tier in terms of his potential for the game. It's not one I imagine them ever adding, but yeah, we'll put him there. Okay, Ant-Man. Immediately, Ant-Man. He's already in the game. Hank Pym. Can't play him yet, so whether they would do this as Scott Lang or try and retcon and allow people to play Ant-Man. Hank Pym. The potential is definitely there for him to be added. In terms of his powers, he's got shrinking and growth. Shrinking's not in the game yet, but in terms of Kamala's embiggen, they've already added the potential for it. He also has... I'm not sure if they'll be able to utilise his ant control very well. Maybe that could be something to do with his intrinsic. Maybe... I don't know, fear. A lot of it's robots, so I don't think the fear of getting bitten by ants is particularly gonna be that useful. But maybe surging ants. I don't think they'll make use of flying either on an ant back, because that would be so slow. That'd be so slow. But shrinking and growing in combat would be awesome. I imagine his intrinsic would probably be parry in terms of shrinking down quickly and then growing again to throw punches. I don't imagine them allowing you to toggle between small, medium and big. That'd be probably a little bit too much, so I imagine most of it will be like takedowns or the ability to shrink and then grow as part of an attack or a combo. In terms of skins, he has had a lot of different forms, especially if you're talking about Hank Pym. We've had Yellow Jacket, we've had Goliath, Giant Man and Ant-Man. So he has a lot of potential for skins, and to be honest, a lot of potential to be in the game at some point. With that in mind, he's also one of the OG Avengers, actually. So when people think of Avengers, he's one of the ones they think of. He would be definitely someone who could draw in the crowds, get people to come back and play the game some more. So I'm going to put him in A tier, because he doesn't evoke great combat in my mind, just because of his power. To me, shrinking, it's cool and it's great, but I can't imagine them implementing it into the game in a way that feels the way people want it, because people will want to shrink down and grow at will. So I certainly would, and I can't imagine them being able to implement that in a way that is fun. So I'm going to put him as an A tier because of his potential, but not S tier, because I don't think people won't get the fantasy they want out of him. Alright, Beast. In terms of combat, I imagine very similar to Black Panther. maybe with a little bit more acrobatics in him. Skins, obviously he's had a lot, but they will mostly be X-Men skins, which I'm not sure they'll want to do, to be honest. But there are a lot of options. The first thing you think of when you think of Beast is X-Men as well, so I'm not sure whether an Avengers game is the place for him, despite how good his combat would be and how well it would fit into the current system. So I think for Beast, I'm gonna have to put him as probably a C. He would be super fun to play, don't get me wrong, he'd be super fun to play. But I just think that there's too much red tape around him in terms of what they could do. And he'd be too similar to Black Panther in a way. A bit more wall jumping as opposed to wall clinging, and a bit more grappling, but I think it'd be very similar to Black Panther in playstyle. So best to make way for characters that are more different, a bit more variety, a bit more variance in power. And also people who scream Avengers a bit more than him. Alright. Next. Voodoo. So Brother Voodoo is his voodoo magic. I imagine if we're going to get a magic caster, it'll be Doctor Strange or the Scarlet Witch first. So they will be the priorities for adding them, as they're much bigger A-tier Avengers, whereas Brother Voodoo is a little on the back of people's minds when they think of Avengers. He also doesn't have a whole lot of skin options, which is important for this game. And his combat, he would be, in my mind, quite difficult to make work with the current playstyle. Because it's whether you make a ranged build or not, it's quite a melee focused game, and you can play it with range, and you can play it well with range. Range works really well in this game, but you do end up getting hit a lot, and if they can't implement a good melee system for him, whether it be close range spells or summoning weapons, I don't imagine him performing particularly well. But it would be cool to have him. Yeah, because of that, I think, yeah, if we're going to have a caster or a magic user, we're going to want Doctor Strange or Scarlet Witch first, so I'm going to put him as a C tier. Captain Marvel, already been mentioned multiple times in the game, has already got art in the game. There's a poster of her in Kamala's room twice, with different skins. She has a lot of potential in terms of the game, because the Kree is coming. It's almost a guarantee that we will get her at this point. The combat would be super fun. Our new flying character would be great. Energy beams, the strength she has. The ultimate would be her binary form. She has a hell of a lot of potential for this game. The skins would be great if they're willing to, like, you know, push far enough to add some of the more interesting ones. I think she is definitely an S tier for this game, almost a guaranteed character. There's not really much more I need to say. Daredevil. Combat-wise, he would fit in super well. A pretty melee-focused character with a few different weapons, which they could apply the toggle for. He has his blind sonar that could work really well as part of his intrinsic, or even a support, a heroic or something. In terms of skins, he has a fair amount. He has obviously his classic red suit, but you know, there were stages of his comic life where, you know, he had the black hood, and before he became the real Daredevil. I think he has enough variety and enough, like, iterations of his costumes through the years in the comics that there's potential there to have some good skins. In terms of, he does remind people more of Defenders than Avengers, which might work a little bit against him. But he is an Avenger. He has been multiple times. He's included in one of my favourite runs. So I think of him pretty regularly when I think of Avengers. I just think the combat would be too good to pass up on. So I'm going to have to put him... Ooh, is he an A or an S? I think S tier. It'd just be, the combat would be so good. I do think Captain Marvel would be more fun though, so she can stay at the top. Doctor Strange. People really want to see Doctor Strange in this game. And I agree. I do think it'd be great. I do have the apprehension that if we add Doctor Strange, we're going to have to really consider how we use his kit. Because in the films, which a lot of people want to take inspiration from, especially for things like takedowns and finishes, they do tend to pull those from the films. He hasn't used a whole lot of melee capabilities. He summoned some weapons in the fight with Thanos. He was very crowd control and great for disorientating the enemy. Definitely has a lot of skin potential. Definitely an A-tier Avenger, so people will just go straight to thinking of Doctor Strange when they think of Avengers. And I would say between him and Scarlet Witch, those are the two most requested characters I've seen. They would just have to really lean into his spells. I don't think they can... If they add him, they can't just go in with him wielding a single spell in his melee or for his range. They need to have, like... Similar to Kate and Hawkeye, the different combos in which you press the buttons release a different spell. Like, if you hold triangle, if you press triangle, if you press square, if you hold square, all of those need to be different spells. Including his heroics need to be different spells, his ranged needs to have different spells. There needs to be a lot of variety with Doctor Strange to show, like, the real potential of the character. So I think, yeah, we're going to have to throw him into an S tier. Definitely, he would fit right in. I'm worried if they did it well, he could be here. If they struggled to, like, show the variety and the potential of his spells, he'd sit here. I'm going to put him here. I'm going to be hopeful. They've done a great job with character design so far. I'm going to keep trusting them, and we're going to put him in S tier in front of Daredevil. Falcon. New flyer, which would be great. He has guns, wings. Red Wing would be an excellent support heroic. He's a classic Avenger. He's led the Avengers before. He's a clear choice for the game, especially with the rise of his popularity that's going to be happening with new Captain America films, where he's the new Captain America. There'll be people hoping to see him in the game. I'll put him as a B tier. I think his combat would be fun, but repetitious. I don't think he has the variety in his kit to do more than just flying, a bit of martial arts, a bit of hitting things with your wings, maybe a few guns for his range. I don't think he has a whole lot of variety. A lot of skin potential, but in terms of the gameplay, I think it'd be fun, but not the best. He's a good enough choice. Alright, Firebird. One of the smaller Avengers, people would say, if they were going to add them. She'd come later for sure. Fire powers isn't something we have in the game at the moment. Enemies can do fire, a lot of flamethrowers, but it's not something the Avengers can come to wield at the moment. And again, another flying character, which is always going to be good. Very few costume choices though. She hasn't had much variety in her years in the comics. So that will downgrade her. She's also not the first person you think of. And I'm not overly sure on her melee capabilities as a hero. So with that in mind, I think I'm going to have to put her as a D. This would be when you're really running out of characters and you want to start adding some curveballs just to keep people playing the game. They could do her super well, but they would have to adapt her, I think. They wouldn't be able to leave her as she is in the comics. Okay. Hellcat. So she, in the comics, has this costume that can sense and deflect magic. So not overly useful at the moment with our current enemies. Obviously got martial arts, claws, a grappling hook. Basically, should be kind of a mix between Black Panther and Black Widow, with the potential for some interesting heroics if they add magic in the future. Maybe the potential to reflect spells of the people who cast it, or maybe they could just adapt it to reflect ranged attacks. I don't think there's a whole lot of variety with the costumes, though. I don't think she's been in enough comics in the years to really collect a good range of comic costumes. I'm going to put her as a C. Too similar to Black Panther to really stand on her own, and her main gimmick isn't really usable in the current roster of the game or against the current enemies in the game. So we're going to go C tier for Hellcat. Hercules. To me, he's one of the go-to Avengers in the comics. You really think of Hercules when you think of Avengers. I imagine he'd play like a more controlled Hulk, seeing as his main thing is super strength. He has a lot of costumes in the comics, so plenty of potential for that. He hasn't even been remotely mentioned in the MCU, so the non-comic fans aren't going to really understand who he is. I think it'd be fun though. I think it'd be similar to the Hulk, but more controlled. And I mean, that's fine. His power set doesn't really leave much variety. It'd be really up to the animation team to really just lean into him and do some interesting things with his attacks, because super strength's a really hard power to make interesting if you're not like just sending people flying, which potentially he could do. Maybe that could lead into his intrinsic, like you build up with some quick attacks, and then if you hold your intrinsic you start doing heavy knockback with your punches. That'd be really cool, and a way to make him different than the Hulk. I'm going to put him A tier. I think it'd be really fun to play as. I'm not a huge fan of the Hulk myself because of how I really struggle to manage the rage feature to heal. I just don't even think about it, and then I'm dead and I'm like, oh shit. So yeah, I'm going to leave him as an A tier. Hulkling. This is one of the young Avengers, but we have got Kamala, we have Kate, so they're clearly not scared to add young Avengers. Hulkling would be super interesting to play because of his shape-shifting, his Kree and Skrull heritage. He's in a position to be added, with the Kree being the big threat of the game. His powers are really interesting. He can grow wings, which would be awesome. And he's not afraid to wield weapons, which I think we need some more of. So thinking about it, we have Black Widow who has guns and batons, but they're not really... The batons don't work any different than just punching. Captain has his shield, which is fine, but again, doesn't work any different than just punching. We have Kate and Hawkeye who actually use swords, which is good, and it adds a bit of variety to them. Iron Man punches, Hulk punches. It's mostly a punchy game at the moment. I don't think he has much variety in his costumes though. He's a newer character. But I would really like to see him in the game. I think he'd be really fun to play as. So I'm going to put him as a great choice. An A tier potential. Next, Iron Fist. He's similar to Daredevil in terms of you think of Defenders before you think of Avengers with him. But he has been an Avenger. And a pretty cool one, who I think would really fit into the combat of this game. The use of his Iron Fist, hopefully not as a heroic, hopefully as an intrinsic. You throw in your punches and your kicks, and then you hold down the intrinsic button to do some Iron Fist imbued attacks. Costumes would be... there's plenty who's done a lot of different costumes in the comics. I don't think there's anything else. He'd just be a really good choice of character. I would actually prefer him to why did you say Black Panther? To Daredevil, because I think he has more flashy abilities than Daredevil does. Luke Cage. Luke Cage is gonna be an interesting one because his main ability, power, whatever, is unbreakable skin, which I mean, he's strong, but it doesn't translate very well to a game that's more of a brawler. We can't have him just like taking half damage, because that'd be strong, it'd be a powerful ability, but it wouldn't really translate well to fighting, because then he'd just be punching people and taking half damage, which again would be strong, but it wouldn't be nearly as interesting or dynamic as the other characters. I think they'd have to, again, really lean into his animations. Maybe give him an intrinsic that makes... I don't know, it's hard. His ability is really cool, but wouldn't translate well to the game, I don't think. He does have a lot of costumes though, so the potential for skins is there. And he's been an Avenger for a long time, as well as a Defender, so I think people do think of Luke Cage when they think of Avengers. I'm going to put him as a B tier. I don't think his power is interesting enough to have him compete with these higher tier characters. I'm actually going to move him up to here though. Thinking about it, I think he's more interesting than these ones. Mantis. She was recruited into the Avengers in like the first line of recruits after the OGs. But she would be terrible in this game. Empath. A fair amount of skins, but the combat abilities are diminutive. I don't think she'd be a good character. I think if you're going to add her, just add her to Guardians of the Galaxy instead. She's not a good choice for this game, sadly. Mockingbird. Mockingbird's an interesting one, because she's basically just Black Widow. She's a Black Widow clone, which is fine, but we already have Black Widow. So I don't know if having another one, especially now with the Tachyon event, has any purpose. Honestly, she should just be added as a skin, like maybe a exotic skin for Black Widow. So I'm going to put her as... I mean, she'd be more fun than these guys. So I'll put her as a top tier D class. She'd be fun, but she'd literally be Black Widow, which we already have, so why add her again? Moon Knight is a really interesting one, because Moon Knight would be really fun in the game. Basically Marvel's Batman, except a bit crazy. He has gadgets, he has excellent fighting skills. He would be up here, except for the fact that he basically gets one costume. And this game, whether you like it or not, really does love its skins and its potential when it comes to skins. And he really doesn't have much. He has like 2 skins. So I would put him as an A tier. I'm gonna put him as a B tier because he would be fun to fight as, if a little bit similar to some of the others. A little mix of Black Panther, Black Widow, a little bit of Captain America, a few more gadgets maybe, but yeah, without the potential in terms of his skins. And he's a well-known Marvel character. I don't think he's a well-known Avengers character though. Namor. Namor is, again, is a really interesting one, because he is a popular character with a pretty broad skill set, strength, speed, all the classic superhero things, but then a lot of water powers, and we don't really have much in the way of aquatic maps, and I don't think we'll be adding any. So I really don't think he'll be able to live up to his full potential, and that's going to make people sad. He'll just be a strong dude on the land. He'll basically be Captain America 2 without a shield, with a little bit of Thor thrown in and a trident, and they won't be able to make use of the most interesting part about him, which is just the affinity for water. So while the combat would be great and he's a popular character, I actually think he's probably end up being a D tier character to add to this game, just because of the limitations it has in terms of water, and it wouldn't be able to make a good use of his skill set. Nova. Nova would be fun. There's no denying that. Nova would be fun. Flight, energy blasts, a fine amount of skins. He's also, to me, a pretty prominent Avenger that I think of. Maybe it's just the comic runs I would read as a child, but he was always there in the runs that I would read. I would say he's also a flying character. Again, we want more flying characters in this game. It's undisputed that people want better traversal overall, but more flying characters. So I'm going to put him as an A tier character choice. He's basically it's very similar to Captain Marvel, without the more prominent links to this universe. I'm going to put him here. A tier for Nova. Quake. Quake would be fun. There's no denying Quake would be fun. I don't think she has quite as much potential as some of the other characters. She has vibrations, earthquakes, that kind of thing, which is really fun. Her ranged attacks, I'm sure, would implement them somehow. Her ultimates would be so cool, just like knocking everyone to the ground or like stunning them all in a big AoE. She'd be really cool. But she has very few skins. She has like 8 shield agent skins and her own skins and stuff, but I mean, if you Google Quake costumes, not a lot of variety comes up, just small variations on the same thing. But the combat would be fun, so I'm going to put her as a... I'm going to put her here, in B tier, just below Agent Venom, but above Falcon. I do know there's a few people who really want her in the game, like Miller, for example. So yeah, we're gonna put her there. I think that's good enough for her. Quicksilver. Quicksilver, I think, was also recruited in the first wave of Avengers recruits after the OG team, so he's been there before. I really don't think they would be able to give people what they want with a speedster though, because the way video games either do speedsters is slow-mo, which wouldn't work in a multiplayer game, or they do that thing where you throw a punch with one button but it throws like 3 punches super quick, or you do a special ability and the guy like disappears and then reappears in like a flurry of blows and then teleports back to where they were. Which, I mean, that's how they would have to do it in this game. They would have to do like each punch is like one click of the button is 3 punches, and like lean into his speed as animations as opposed to as a mechanic that we can use. Also, the traversal in this game, again, pretty limiting, and I think that is because they don't want people to be able to outpace each other. The flyers can't just fly ahead of the ground people, which in reality they would be able to do, and I think they're pretty nervous in this game about someone just flying to the objective and decimating people before the runners on the ground can catch up. And they would have the same problem with Quicksilver. People would want to go fast, and they should. It's Quicksilver, like, you want to be able to fucking run, but they wouldn't be able to implement that with their current thought process on the game, with the current design of the game. Because if someone was playing Quicksilver and then you were playing Captain America, by the time you get to the fight, everyone will be dead. And that's going to really suck for the other characters. So while I think he's a well-known Avenger, a great character, and a great skill set, I think this game would struggle to make him good enough for people's expectations of the character. So because of that, I'm going to put him as a low B tier. I think he would be fun, but he wouldn't match the expectations people would have of him. Okay, Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is a pretty clear choice, to be honest. She's definitely... I'm just going to S tier straight away. She has the same problems that Doctor Strange might run into, where unless they really lean into the variety of their spells, it could get repetitious. You don't want to be playing as Scarlet Witch and throwing punches. You want to be, even in melee, you want to be just whipping out small close-range spells and like knockbacks and summoning things that clash into the enemy. And they would have to make sure that they can implement that correctly. Because in the MCU, they've kind of been pretty limiting with Scarlet Witch so far. She always just kind of summons red energy around her hands and then like blocks things and then telekinesis them away. That wouldn't be great in this game. If you're stood next to a Captain America, a Black Panther, and a Hawkeye, and they're doing all these crazy animations, and you're there like, oh, my hands are red. That's not going to feel good. So they need to look through some comics, find some of her variety of magical potential, and really lean into like pressing quick attack, holding quick attack, pressing heavy attack, holding heavy attack. They should all be different spells with different effects. She has plenty of skins. I don't know if they'll be able to do a lot of them, because they seem pretty reserved in terms of how lewd the skins can get. They're very nervous to even do like a classic Black Widow V-neck kind of thing. So I think some of her skins might be a bit too provocative for this game to want to do, but she has plenty of options, and I'm sure they could figure something out. Based off pure personal bias, I like Doctor Strange's variety more than Wanda's, so I'm going to put her just below Doctor Strange in S tier. Sentry! Sentry runs into the exact same problem as Quicksilver, but for very different reasons. Sentry is so fucking strong, so powerful, so ungodly, just insane. There is no way this game can live up to that fantasy. People already run into it with Hulk, where they throw a punch and it feels like they're just not impacting hard enough. If you put Sentry in this game, and he doesn't one-shot a random robot, then people are just going to be sad. I would be sad. I love Sentry as a character. I think he's really cool. I think the Void is amazing and has great potential. That would be such an interesting ultimate, where it just goes into Void form and just tears things apart. But I don't think he will ever be able to play to the quality that people would expect of a character like that. It'd be like putting Superman in Arkham Knight games and have him play as just like Batman. His punches don't send people flying, his lasers don't kill people. Like, that's what people would expect of a character like Sentry. And while he's such a cool character and he has great potential for a game, there's just no way they can live up to it. They can't build a character like that in this game without him just being ridiculously overpowered. So I'm gonna have to put him as a C tier. I want him as an S tier. I would love if they could rebalance the game in a way that allows you to just fucking go through enemies like crazy. But unless they can restructure their game a bit more and just give people more enemies to kill, more things to do, so that you're not competing against your other party members for a punch on an enemy, he's just not going to work. She-Hulk. It is very much rumoured that she will be the next character, which is fine. I really like She-Hulk. I think she's an excellent female hero. I think she's going to be similar to Hulk, but more controlled and probably a little bit more fun. I hope they don't give her the rage feature, because I suck at using the rage feature. She has plenty of skin variety. She's had multiple like iterations of her character, from Savage She-Hulk to the Agent She-Hulk. So I think she'll be a good addition to the game. And gameplay-wise, probably runs into the same problems as Hercules, where the animations are where the real fun is going to come from. I'd always recommend doing the same idea as I recommended with him, where the intrinsic is like built up by melee attacking. Then if you hold the intrinsic while throwing a punch, it does like much stronger knockback, just to get people to feel some of the strength of those characters. But yeah, I think she's a good choice. I'm gonna put her as an A tier. I might slide her above Hercules, just because the roster is a little bit of a sausage party at the moment. So having some more female characters would be nice. Especially as leader of... Is it the A-Team? No, that's not right. Maybe it's A-Team. The female Avengers team. She's the one who runs that, so it'd be nice to have her in the game. Speed. Basically just Quicksilver, but less well known. I'm gonna have to put them as a low C tier. Less costume options. Same powers with the same problems as Quicksilver. Sorry dude, I just don't think you'll be a good addition to the game right now. Actually, it might lower you to like here in D tier. If you're gonna add a speedster, it's gotta be Quicksilver. He's more well known, more costume potential, and yeah. Sorry, Speed. Spider-Woman, probably my favourite female superhero. The new comic run that she's been getting has been excellent. Highly recommend it if you read comics. Venom blasts give her a great range attack potential. She's excellent melee combatant. Wall climb, gliding. Gliding would be a new traversal that we haven't had before. That'd be awesome. And the costumes are great if they, are willing to lean into the more risque costumes, tight skin type of things. I think she'd be a really fun character. I'm gonna put her as an A tier character. As personal preference, she's the one I want in the game most because I really enjoy the character. I think she's got such a cool personality, really nice power set, really nice costume. So if it was up to me, she'd be like, next character, right now. But we're gonna put it there because I'm trying to be unbiased. Storm. Storm is someone that people will immediately think of X-Men first, which could be a problem. If they're gonna make an X-Men game, save her for that. Don't shoehorn her into this one just because people really want Storm. Save her for a game where it makes more sense. However, she's a very interesting character and has a really cool power set that I'm not sure if they could implement correctly. They're definitely able to do some interesting things. Ranged attacks being lightning or knockback with like gusts of wind. Assault heroics could be just calling lightning. Ultimate heroic could be just summoning a giant lightning storm that just unbiasedly strikes the ground. She has some interesting potential. She can fly as well, which is nice. We want more flyers. I feel like I'm going to put her as a low A tier because I think she would be really fun, but I want them to save her for X-Men. I want them to make her a prominent character in her own game. The Thing. Similar problem to Storm. People will associate The Thing way more with the Fantastic Four than the Avengers, but he has been a pretty prominent Avenger in the past. He would basically be Hulk, let's be honest. I don't know if there's much they can do with him to make him that different than the Hulk. A little more controlled, a little more durable, maybe. But I can't imagine him being that much different than the Hulk. So I'm gonna put him here in C tier, towards the lower end. Not much in the way of skids either. I think this is just the only thing he wears, which would be very limiting. I guess it's like the Hulk though. The Hulk's pretty limited in his outfits, without it being really weird like the suits. Tigra would be really fun, but she would basically be a female Black Panther with a costume they will not be willing to put in this game. There is no way that they are dropping a woman in a bikini as a character in this game. I think she'd be really fun to play, but I cannot imagine them ever putting her in. I think she just wears this, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember seeing her in anything other than her black bikini. So, I'm going to have to put her as a C tier. If we get to the point where we're running out of characters, and we need to add some more, sure, throw Tiger in, but I don't see her being a great choice for this game. Vision would be awesome. Flight, lasers, phasing as an intrinsic. He'd be super cool. Imagine his intrinsic would be amazing. Hold it down and people just phase through you. I don't know if I'd want his... I guess his laser would have to be his ranged attack, because it's kind of his only option. And then his ultimate assault would maybe have to be a bit like a Unibeam. It's like a charged up version of the laser. He has a lot of skin variety. He's a very well known Avenger. I'm going to put him up here. I'm going to put him above Daredevil because he's going to be a little more diverse than Daredevil in terms of what he can do. But yeah, S tier for Vision. War Machine is obviously extremely similar to Iron Man. Has a minigun, more rockets, but he's a guy in armor who can fly and has a lot of range potential. I really do want him in the game. I think he's a great character, but he'd be super similar to Iron Man. They can give him different weapons, they can give him a minigun, but there's always going to be that similarity there. I'm actually worried that if they do add him, they'll make him better than Iron Man. They'll make that minigun just like tear through enemies as an assault heroic. Give him rockets that are like better, because they can't just give him the same rockets as Iron Man. They're going to have to change them somehow, and as a very assault-heavy hero, I imagine they'll replace, like, one rocket with, like, a spray of rockets, or, like, a rocket bombing run, which would be really cool and really strong, and I love War Machine, but Iron Man is supposed to be the superior one. I'm going to put him as a high B tier. I'll put him with Falcon. I think he's a good choice for this game. He'll work really well, but he will be just a little too similar to Iron Man, and because of power spikes that come with designing characters in these kind of games, I think he'll actually end up being upgraded Iron Man. And after I bought all these Iron Man costumes, I can't stop using them to play with War Machine. Wasp, an OG Avenger, the original leader of the Avengers. I think it's an obvious choice to add her, really. I would put her, personally, a little bit above Wanda in S tier. Flight would be great, we want more flyers. The shrinking could lead to some really cool animations and takedowns. Venom blasts for ranged attacks. She can more than hold her own in melee. I think she might have the same problem with Ant-Man, where people will want to just freely shrink down. And I think they might end up making that a part of her flying instead, where like when you jump and then go into fly mode, you shrink down, and then during your fighting, the animations will be like you swing a punch, shrink down, swing a punch, grow up again, and like it'll become part of your animations. It won't become something you can freely control. But that would make sense, and I would be fine with that. I think she's a really cool character. She has a lot of skins, and I don't remember if they've mentioned Wasp in the game. Ant-Man's in the game, but I don't remember them ever mentioning Wasp. I wonder if he's not met her yet, or whether she's died. Oh, I don't know. Does he have a daughter? He has a daughter. I remember the audio files where he's talking to his daughter. So maybe they could add his daughter, Hank Pym's daughter, as Wasp. That'd be great. Wiccan. I really like Wiccan as a character. He would be very similar to Wanda and Doctor Strange and Brother Voodoo. Even though his magic works differently, he has reality manipulation instead of like spells. It would, in the game, work the same way as the others. It'd be a variety of spells doing a variety of things. Pretty low costume options. I think he has just one. Maybe he's worn a different thing once or twice. I think, as much as I love the character, I'm going to put him as a B tier, pretty low. He'd be really fun, but if we have Doctor Strange, we have Wanda, I don't think there's any need for Wiccan other than just story, or if they just want to like essentially do like a here's Wanda with her skill set. If you want the same character but with different spells, here's Wiccan. I think that's how they would have to do that. Alright, lastly, Wolverine. Wolverine, people really wanted this game. And I understand, he's been an Avenger for a long time. He is, you know, more associated with X-Men, but he's... I can't think of an Avengers comic run I've read where he's not been in the team. So, I mean, I don't think it's an argument of whether he deserves to be here. He's getting an Insomniac game, which I'm sure is going to be fucking amazing. But I don't want the same thing to happen with Spider-Man, to happen with Wolverine. Although I do think his combat will be incredible in this game. His intrinsic should just be hold it down and heal. Just like squeeze that health up. The more you attack, the more intrinsic you build. The more intrinsic you build, the more you heal. Your claws, adamantium, bones, all of that goodness. Plus the way he fights would... I think he'd be pretty unique in his animations. He'd be way less controlled. And it'd be more a case of just like tearing through enemies, throwing them around. He'd be really fun, it's undeniable. He'd be a super fun character. Maybe I'm too hipster, but I'm gonna put him as a low S tier. Because I think he'd be a really fun character in the game, but similarly to Storm, I'd almost rather them save him for his own game with his X-Men counterparts. But it's undeniable he would be an incredible character to play in a game like this. He'd be a really fun character. Well, that is the list then. Do you guys agree with what I put? Is there anyone you would mix around? I feel like there's almost definitely some personal bias in here. Maybe you could come up with some potential uses of characters that I can't. For Quicksilver, for example, I can't think of a way where they can fairly make his speed feel as good as people want it to feel. Same with Sentry. Maybe you think that it would be fine for him to just wail on an enemy without really that much impact, without it feeling like we're being held back. If you do have any, comments, let me know. I'd love to discuss it with someone. I'd love to, really like lean into this and talk about how people feel. So, yeah, if you guys have anything you would change about it, let me know. It'd be great. But yeah, that is the list for now. So maybe we'll come back to this in a year or so, when some new characters are out and we've seen how they can like adapt the game to suit more characters and more power sets. But yeah, thanks for hanging out. I'll see you guys soon. I might do a sneak peek. I might do this tier list again, but with Marvel locations, how much potential they have to play in. I'll let you know. You'll see it if I post it. Bye.